Welcome back to another video, and today we're talking about the best Paper Mario game. Yeah, you heard that right, the best, that's only factual. It's time to go over Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door. How good is this game, and is it really the best of the series? It's only right to give this game justice, especially because it might get a re-release. But before we jump into the video, if you like my content and want to see more, consider subscribing to the channel. Subscribing and liking does plenty for me, and I'll only love you more. But enough of that. How good is Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door? On the channel, this is not our first Mario rodeo, and when it comes to Paper Mario, it's also not the first time. But if we're gonna do a deep dive into these games, then we should probably do the best one. Now, there may be 2 to 3 Paper Mario games that you can argue over, but for the sake of this video, let's just say that this is the best one. The Thousand-Year Door is the GameCube iteration of the Paper Mario series. This game is very close to being 20 years old. In other words, it's old, but does it stand the test of time? At the core, Paper Mario games are based off of an RPG formula. Intelligent Systems does not do a very good job keeping this in later iterations, but I'm not here to destroy them today. They have their own video you can check out over here. So as mentioned before, the Thousand-Year Door game does a very good job keeping the RPG formula, but you always have to have more to a game than just some good leveling. So let's go ahead and talk about the story. The Thousand-Year Door follows the generic Save the Princess story. Good news is you don't feel like it's the generic Save the Princess story for majority of the game. That's mainly due to the great writing of side characters. But before we jump into the sidekicks, we should still talk about the main plot as is. The big baddie of the game is the Shadow Queen. The Shadow Queen was sealed thousands of years ago, and now she wants to come back out to take over the world. Because she was sealed away, she can't just come back, therefore she uses a couple of minions to do her bidding. The main minion is Sir Grotus. Ew. This enemy is nothing but a pawn, but he also does his work behind Kid Grotus. I'm just kidding, his real name is Lord Crump, but that sounds even worse, so I'm just gonna call him Kid Grotus. Throughout the game, you'll fight Kid Grotus until he turns a new leaf. But overall, there's hundreds of minions that end up following the Shadow Queen. Now, it is difficult to say how many of these characters are actually cognizant. It does seem that most of them just follow orders without any idea what they're doing. But no matter how useless they may be, at least you still have Kid Grotus. I mean, look at this swagger now, man. He just decides to pull up looking dripped out for no reason. No way you cannot be conscious looking like this. Slime? Despite these main 3, the game also gives you several different areas that are their mini stories. These are some of the most notable mini-stories. Glitzville is the 3rd chapter at which you fight to become a champion in a tournament. Really, Mario and friends don't care about the tournament because you have a goal in mind. However, you still have to fight through the ranks to reach your goal. During this time, Mario starts getting emails from a mysterious figure called X. Now, X is here to make sure that you don't succeed, but you still have to do what you have to do to get the Crystal Star. Another notable area is Chapter 4, which is Twilight Town. Within Twilight Town, many villagers are turning into pigs because of a curse. Soon as you hear the chime of the bell, somebody turns to port. Sounds pretty realistic, not gonna lie. But overall, you do your best to figure out what the curse is and how to stop it for the village. The side story's purpose are to mainly get a Crystal Star for Mario, but while playing the story, you're completely immersed into that story instead of worrying about what you have to do after. The good news about these side stories besides the plot is you'll have side characters joining your team. These side characters are usually intertwined with the story in some aspect. For example, during the 1st chapter, you go to a castle to stop a dragon. During this journey, you find out that the dragon has been feasting on many different Koopas. And it just so happens that Koops that joins your party is somehow involved with one of the victims. There are several different characters that are somehow involved with the plot just like this. You'll never have to go out of your way to get any of these side characters because they're a part of the story. There is one optional character that you could go get, which is Miss Mouse, but it's not like you'll miss her because your whole party is stacked. Each one of your companions is an expert in their own specialty. A character like Goombella does not specialize in damage or defense. Instead, she'll mainly give you insight on the enemy you're facing. Once she does so, you'll be able to see the enemy's health bar, which is very useful. If you ever take a deep dive into the Paper Mario series, you'll realize that the side characters are nothing but a win. It's really hard to complain about any of the side characters because they all have their own story and reasons as to why they're here. That being said, I'd argue that Paper Mario Thousand-Year Door has the best side characters of any other game. Any other Paper Mario game, that is. But let me know in the comments if you disagree because they all have great partners anyways. Now moving on past the story and the plot, you now have the gameplay. Now listen, hands down, this is the best Paper Mario game when it comes to the gameplay. Basically, after this game, Intelligent Systems decides to do some crap that makes no sense. I'm being completely honest here. What is this trash? I give them credit for trying something new in every single iteration. But if it's not broken, don't fix it. The gameplay is very simple and very traditional. As an RPG, you battle by taking turns from the enemy and yourself. Using a variety of moves you have in your arsenal, your main job is to knock out your enemy by depleting their health bar. Once you defeat an enemy, you'll get XP to level up your main character and learn new skills. This may be cookie cutter to some people, but there's nothing wrong with chocolate chip. To make this gameplay a little bit more different, they've added things such as your FP bar and the audience. Using the FP bar, you and your sidekick will be able to use stronger moves. In other games, this bar would be called MP or mana or whatever else you want to call it. When it comes to your audience, your main goal is to please them to make sure that your star power is high. With the star power, you'll now be able to use devastating attacks with your crystal stars. Depending on how the audience is feeling, sometimes they may throw stuff at you and it can either help or hurt. Again, this model is very traditional, but it's better than whatever this bull jive is. Now that I've spent several minutes talking about only the goods of the game, we should talk about the bads. Problem is, I just can't find any, dog. After looking on the dark web, I noticed something. Most people find this game a lot better because of the nosedive future iterations took. Previously, I mentioned that you can have 2 to 3 Paper Mario games that are probably the best. One of those should be the original Paper Mario game. If there's any complaints about the Thousand Year Door, it's that there's not enough new content from the original. Now in that sense, could you really take off points because of that? You could argue that the original Paper Mario game did it better than the Thousand Year Door. However, whatever you rate the original should not be vastly different compared to the sequel. Both of these are A-tier games no matter what you say. If you play both games, you'll realize that the Thousand Year Door feels very, very similar. But again, this is a sequel. What else do you expect? Now, a valid complaint is that this game feels very repetitive, constantly meeting new characters not only to care about, but having to listen to their stories. And it's not just enough to listen to their stories because usually you have to do something to complete their quest. Therefore, you need to care about their dialogue. On top of that, battles can be a bit too repetitive. Having to jump or hit somebody with a hammer to start a battle in the hub world, just to lead into the actual battle right afterwards, and then you have a cutscene to say you won, woohoo, to go and do it again. Now within the early 2000s, this was not really a big issue, but if you go back and play that now, you realize that TikTok burned our minds. Now you'll realize that it's very exhausting to play through this time and time again. But besides that, what else can you complain about with this game? There have been some rumors that this game is going to get a re-release on the Nintendo Switch. So for those of you who have forgotten the experience of this game or never experienced it at all, this is your chance. Well, at least hopefully it will be your chance. The Thousand Year Door is a Mario game that gives a lot of love to its world. In other words, you need to be here for the long haul. This game almost feels like a light novel with how much dialogue you have to get through. But again, you have to love the dialogue and you have to love the RPG system. This formula is not for everybody, I will not lie. But if you are a big RPG fan, then this one should be for you. So when it comes to the overall rating for this game, I'm gonna give it It's a solid 9.5 out of 10. Again, I don't see anything wrong with this game. You'll never feel like content is missing or you don't have enough. The game will make sure that you have enough battles to not get bored. And of course, with the main plot and the side stories, you'll always have a new mission to love. Now let me know in the comments what you think about the Thousand Year Door. To me, it's easily one of the best Paper Mario games you'll ever see, but I'm open to hear someone else's opinion. And while you're on the channel, if you're looking for more Mario content, the movie just came out and I dropped a review over here. Or maybe you want more Paper Mario and I got another one for you over here. Thank y'all for watching and I'll see y'all next time. Take care.